What's up, everybody? Christian Fowler here. And before we get to the episode, just want to remind you guys tonight, 7 o'clock at Let It Fly in Germantown, we'll be hosting the Players Club. I will be joined by quarterback Tevin Carter, running back Jay Ducker, offensive lineman Jonah Gamble, and linebacker Bryce Edmondson to talk about the win over Bethune-Cookman, the upcoming game against Arkansas State, and just the season as a whole. So if you want to come out, get some great food, meet some of your Tigers players, come out tonight, 7 o'clock. We will see you there. Now, let's get to the episode.
Look, have mercy on me.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me is a big man, but it's not the big man that you're used to.
Not the big man.
Not the big man. I got Kenny with me this week. Gabe was on yet another bachelor trip about his 30th of the year. So he's not with us this week. Also, if you can tell, we're not in the studio doing it digitally because it is a holiday. We're doing this on Labor Day night. It's like 7 o'clock right now on Monday. So we decided we're going to do it digitally this week. So we'll be back in the studio next week with Gabe. But Kenny, what's up, man? You doing all right?
And not much, bro. It's been a good Labor Day. Got to do some labor. Then I went and ate some good food with the family, and now I'm back hanging out with you, man. It's been a good day.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hung out with family, friends, but I'm, like I said, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm winding down, man. I'm kind of ready to go get in bed. But you were at the game this weekend. We're going to jump right into it this week.
Let's go.
You were at the game this weekend, Bethune-Cookman, Memphis, for the week 1 matchup. Down on the field, just, I guess, immediate takeaways. What'd you think? Overall environment, game, everything. Give it all to us.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was I love Saturdays in college football on the field. Like, I've never been, and I've mentioned this so many times. I think this is my typical response at the beginning of every football season is I've always been a basketball guy, so I love the gym. I love being in the gym. I love, being around a bunch of games, players, things like that. But ever since I started covering Memphis football, there's just something about Saturdays at the Liberty Bowl, Saturdays, Memphis Tiger football. It's such a dope environment, man. It's so much fun. It's just an enjoyable time. I mean, honestly, man, like, I know there's a lot of talk right now about the attendance and how it's the lowest attended home opener game in 10 years, I think, for the Tiger football team. I was actually pretty impressed with the crowd, with the turnout. I was impressed with the vocalness, I guess, of the crowd. The student section was balling. Probably the most students. I think the Memphis football team put it out that most students
since
at the game since 2019. I mean, just wild. Like, it was fun, man. It was just good to be back out there again.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought the attendance would be lower than it was too. Like, when I saw the broadcast and saw how many people were there, and it may have been lower than normal, but I just was thinking with the lack of hype around the program and with the quality of opponent as well,
Right.
being a 49-point favorite against Bethune-Cookman, like, that just wasn't going to stir up a bunch of excitement. And this is a team that has opened the season with SEC teams before. So, like, when you look at the comparison with that, clearly not the same level of competition. But I was impressed by it too. Like, it was more than I expected.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. Me and Gabe have talked about this plenty of times. TJ and Trey have talked about it too. Like, if they just win these games and stuff like this, the attendance will grow. Like, if they take care of business the next couple of weeks, those games later in the season, the Boise State, Tulane games, obviously those are important games and the most talented teams that they'll play at home this year, with SMU thrown in there as well. Like, those games will look better than that. So I'm not worried about it optically. I was with you. I was impressed. I was kind of encouraged by the amount of fans that were there, even though it's not a crazy number, like, with everything going into it. Like I said, to me, quality of opponent is the biggest thing. And they're playing
absolutely
a really, really, really bad team. I think Memphis was the 3rd or 4th highest favorite team going into the weekend. I think it was like Georgia, Oregon, maybe Ole Miss and Memphis were like the highest favorites of the weekend. So, like I said, 49-point favorite. That's not going to draw up a bunch of, starved, crazy fans to come see.
When was the last time you saw a 49-point spread like that. That's
For
wild, isn't it?
Memphis?
Yeah, for Memphis, yeah.
I can't remember what they were against Mercer, but it was
Against
really
Mercer.
high.
Was
Yeah,
it that high?
20.
Was it that high, you think?
It was high. I don't know exactly what it was, but 2018 home opener or season
Right.
opener against Mercer, I think they won like 63-7 or something like
It
that.
was
They were
Brady's first game, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't that his
yeah, it
first
was
game?
Brady's first game. And
Yeah.
it's like even people point back to that and they're like, "Well, there was more people for the Mercer game." Well, you were introducing a new starting quarterback that had a lot of hype around. So there's just different circumstances that
And they
go
had just
into
played in the
this.
AAC championship the year before in the
In 20
2017 against
against
Cincinnati,
UC.
right?
No, no, no,
UCF, against
no, no, no.
UCF.
That was the 2018 was the year that they played UCF.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was 2017.
Yeah. No, that was the first game me and you ever covered was
Yes, it was.
Mercer Memphis 2018. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
So there's circumstances that go into that, but overall, like it was cool. Bluff City Media hosted a tailgate for the game. I wasn't able to go, but you were, and just talking to you, you said it was a lot of fun being able to talk to the fans. That's something that you and I have always enjoyed. Some people don't enjoy that, and to each their own. Some people like to keep to themselves, but like that's always been super cool to us being able to engage with fans and people that appreciate our work, or just in general fans that have no clue who we are. Like the spring game was the first time I had been back in 2 years or a year and a half, whatever, because for those that don't know, I took a year off. And it was just like, man, I miss this. Like, especially Gabe was there with us, and you had people coming up to us like, man, I love the show. And the show, on the Bluff, it just started like a month or two before that. So that stuff's awesome. We enjoy that. Look forward to more tailgates this year. I think we've got at least one more this year. Obviously, we don't have the game announced yet, but at some point we'll announce that. So be looking out for that. Be cool to see you guys hanging around again. And it'll probably, if I had to guess, it'll probably be a game that is a little bit more hyped. We just wanted to do this one for the season opener. But let's talk about the on the field play. Memphis wins 56-14. My biggest thing is how much can you take away from a game like this where you're playing just a really, really bad opponent. But for you, Kenny, being on the field, watching the game on the field, what were your thoughts? I mean, like I said, I don't know how much you can get out of it, but what did you get out of this game?
Well, I mean, I think I say this all the time, and I have my certain things that I like to say just to kind of, so that when I come on here and I have to talk about, what I saw from the viewpoint, the vantage point, because most people would say, Kenny, you're on the field, or Kenny, you're sitting on the baseline. Like you should be able to see everything and be able to talk about everything. And it's like, I'm also looking through a 5.5-inch screen on a camera, trying to make sure I get the right shot. So there's going to be some things that I miss. Like people that see it on TV, people that are in the stands can probably see things a little bit better than I can. But I will say this, man, there were some immediate things that jumped off the table to me, or jumped off the off my little 5.5-inch screen. The first thing is, man, and I want to caveat this with the idea that it was Bethune-Cookman, and it was a team that had no business being on the field with Memphis, but it looks like the Tigers have found something with Sutton Smith and Blake Watson. They are doing some things. They're showing some things that the Tigers haven't had since
Kenny Gainwell.
Maybe. Well, Kenny Gainwell, I mean, even like, the first like 3 games of the year in 2021 with Brandon Thomas, right? Like Brandon Thomas led the nation in rushing for the first 3 years of the season. Obviously injuries kind of stepped in the way of that, but obviously Kenny Gainwell is the guy that we look at and we go, he's kind of the person, the running back, that the last great running back I think that Memphis has had. But the way that they were able to utilize Sutton and Blake in multiple positions on offense really felt a lot like 2019 to me. And you guys talk a lot of time. You and Gabe use this word multiple all the time. The Tigers need to be more multiple, and that's what I saw, man. You saw those guys be able to, have some wiggle in the, in the trenches, up the gut running, but then also, man, out wide in the slot, catching out of the backfield. There just seemed to be something there, especially with Blake Watson. I mean, Sutton obviously went over 100 yards for the first time since, 2019, I think, or no, 2021. And it just was. So Sutton had a great game, but Blake just looked different to me. Just looked different.
Yeah, I want to touch on that a little bit, but I want to start with the defense because this has been something that we've talked about a ton. I think all three of us and TJ and Trey as well. I think we're all high on Matt Barnes, especially what he did with this defense towards the end of the year, especially look at like the Utah State game, the way they played defensively in that game. Once again, all this, anything we say under this umbrella of breaking down this game has the caveat of this was a terrible team. So,
I mean, really bad, bad.
Moving forward, everything we say is not necessarily relevant. I don't know if relevant is the right word, but it's not necessarily going to tell us what the rest of the season looks like because this opponent is not telling us anything. So I'm just going to put that disclaimer out there so I don't have to keep saying it. And so you don't have to keep saying it. Like everything's kind of with a grain of salt in this episode.
It's not prescriptive of the rest of the year.
Right.
And the teams are going to get better.
Know. We simply don't know. Like the competition will step up pretty much every week. I mean, Arkansas State, not very great. Navy, not very great. And then you get, Missouri, Boise, Tulane. So that competition level is absolutely going to go up over the next several weeks.
Absolutely.
But all we can talk about now is what happened on Saturday. It's the first game. So, boom, disclaimer. I'm done. I'm not saying that anymore. If you take what I take.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. If you take what I say and you run with it, whatever, that's on you. I gave you a disclaimer.
The defense said they had the best defense in the country.
Right. The defense looked really good, and we expected the defense to be better this year. I think multiple times we've said they have the potential to be a top 5 defense in the American this year. Like they have depth that they have not had in quite a while. Like even predating Ryan Silverfield back to the Norvell years. Yeah. If you rewind it to then, the defense wasn't very good as well, but like they went out and they got players that have the potential to be very good at Memphis in the American Conference. And we saw flashes of it on Saturday. Players like Chandler Martin and Darius Jones, Derek Hunter, like Andres Fox from Fresno State, like all these guys, these transfers that came in are changing the outlook of this defense. Simeon Blair as well played a good game. Like overall, there's not really anyone on this defense that played a bad game. They allowed like 115 yards or something like that. 91, so 91 yards. Mm-hmm. They allowed 91 total yards. That is the number 1 defense in the country right now if going by yardage, if Kenny wants that one out there. But take that
Ryan asked today in press availability, can we just stop it? Like here, can we
we'll finish the season with the number 1 defense.
Yeah, that's what
But if you just take the yardage out of it, let's just say we're watching the team that played Saturday. The speed, the depth, the size, like this defense looked like they had something different that they have not had dating back to when the other big guy played on the team. Like they haven't had a defense of that level of aggression and physicality in a long time. Hopefully they continue that. Hopefully they're able to carry that into these games against better opponents. But it is a positive sign. Like they could have come out, allowed 250, 270 yards, maybe a couple of touchdowns, and it been like it was lackluster. They did exactly what they were supposed to do in this game, and that's all that matters. Like they took care of business. They held a team under 100 yards. Like it doesn't matter how bad a team is. You don't typically hold teams under 100 yards. Like let's just, for the fun of it, because stirring the pot's always fun. Like let's take a look. Georgia played Middle Tennessee State. Let's see what they held them to offensively, because I don't know what it was. So we're just doing this.
Well, they were only up 7-0 in the first, and like with 5 minutes left in the second half.
Yeah, Georgia. And we'll talk about all of college football later. But let's see. They allowed 262 yards to Middle Tennessee State, which they're a far better team than Middle Tennessee State. Like I said, they were a 50-point favorite. Memphis was a 49-point favorite. So comparable in talent to talent. Like.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Memphis was X amount better than Bethune-Cookman. Georgia was X amount of better than Middle Tennessee State. Or was it UT Martin? I'm sorry. I think I'm screwing that up. I think they played UT Martin. I think Alabama played Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah, it was UT Martin.
Yeah, UT Martin. Yeah. So like the level of competition in comparison is relatively close just based off a point spread.
Right.
UT Martin had 262 yards. Bethune-Cookman had 91. So, like, you can only control what you can control, who's in front of you, and they were up to the task. Would have liked to – the one thing that I said to you that I would have liked to see more of is turnovers. But when a team only throws the ball like 13 times for like 40 or 50 yards, there's only so many turnovers that can be forced. They forced 2 fumbles. They recovered one of them. So, like, they did force turnovers, but they lost the turnover battle overall.
So wild, right?
Which is not a great look against a bad team, but those are things that can be cleaned up. But yes, overall encouraged by the defense. I think the guys that I mentioned, the transfers they played really well. You know, some of your star players returning, Jalen Allen, Cormonte Hamilton played well. You had newcomers coming in that, you know, were in the program, not transfer guys like DJ Bell at one of the corner spots who played well. So overall, encouraged by the defense. And we know, like, Matt Barnes is a guy that wants to be multiple. He wants to be versatile. He wants to bring different looks and pressures and stuff. And he did. I mean, they stayed pretty vanilla in this game, which is what you do against a bad opponent. So overall, defense, very impressed by, even in a game of this magnitude.
I have a question for you about that. Ryan was asked about that today in the Silverfield in the availability. He said, was asked, did you hold back some of your playbook? And he was like, nah, what you see is what you get. You don't believe that, do you?
No, there's coaches, of course, are going to say that, but absolutely in certain games against certain opponents, like, you'll bring out stuff that's different. And whether that's based on, you know, schemes and what you're playing against,
right,
or, you know, in a situation where you need a different type of trick play or something like that you're not going to use in a game like this against Bethune-Cookman. So, no, I don't think they showed everything. I think there's definitely still stuff that they can show. And I think we'll see that as the season unfolds, obviously.
That'll be interesting because, I mean, even, you know, you talk about the offense and you put some points and put up some yards and things like that. They didn't even have, you know, Jay Ducker didn't play. Joe Skates didn't play. They were both in warm-ups, you know, on the sideline the entire time. So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see, like, what Joe Skates will do in terms of verticality, you know, for this team as he comes back. You know, that seems to be the one thing that I think most Tiger fans were wondering is, you've got a speedster like Demir Blankumsey. You've got a big dude. I mean, Tosky Dove is, again, I saw him again out on the field, just a monster. He's just big.
That was Rock, dude. Rock's huge.
And then let's do this. Okay. This will now be the second or third year in a row that in the preseason we've heard the coaches talk about, this is Rock Taylor's year. This is now this, that, and the third. This is the first game where I saw an extended period of time where he was impacting the game on a very real level. What did you think about Rock? Like, what did you see? I mean, he's just, I'll say this, up close in person, I didn't need my little 5.5-inch screen to notice. Dude's a monster. Like, he's a big kid that can run.
And the question has never been talent. Like, this is a kid that was very highly rated coming out of high school, was a 4-star at one point, was a Tennessee commit at one point to Jeremy Pruitt.
Right.
Like, he has talent. We know that. It's never been a question of that. Is he the fastest receiver? No, but he has great size, and that helps him a lot. You know, anytime you have a receiver of that size, that is a big advantage. And I think this could be the year that he puts it together, and it's a year that Memphis needs him to put it together because they need an intermediate guy. They need a guy that can play underneath. Like you said, you mentioned the speed of Demir Blankumsey and what he does as far as stretching the field and being a slot threat.
Right.
Tosky Dove is a big player, but he's more of a 50-50 ball down the field. Go get it. Rock would be like your intermediate, middle of the field, dig, slant, skinny post. Like, that's the guy for that. And you need that to open everything up, you know, not only for your other receivers, but for your running game as well. So, like, if he can put it together this year, if the 6 catches for 78 yards is a somewhat close baseline, if he's between a 45 and 85 yard game every week and he's got, you know, 4 to 8 catches a game, and that's the kind of role that he's playing,
right? They
need that. Like, they need that guy that can win in tight coverage over the middle of the field. And those, you know, those are when you go, you know, 3rd and 8 type plays. That's when you go over the middle of the field on those digs and slants and stuff like that. And you need a guy who, like I said, he's not the best separator, but a guy that you can fit it in that tight window coverage and he can make those catches and, you know, extend the drive. And that's where he needs to be. And if he can do that, like, they need that desperately because
he's
the only player they have that can really do that.
And I would say he's the first guy in a long time the Tigers have had that can play that role, right? Like if you remember, like who they had, DeMonte was that guy. Antonio was that guy in 2019, right? Even before he kind of took over but started running in the backfield a little bit. But like those were those guys that were the intermediate. We got to get 8 yards and let's hope they can get some yards after catch, right? Like let's get the ball to them where we know they settle down right next to the marker and get our first down and try to move the ball, keep the possession going. But no, man, it was definitely, he's the first guy. Like, I mean, Javon was tall. Javon Ivory last year was tall, but Javon didn't have that size that Rock has.
Just be able to box somebody out.
Yeah. Rock has that look of him where if he gets you on his hip, it's over. Like you're not going to be able, because he's fast enough, but it's going to be very difficult for a corner to be able to go through that size of a kid once he's got you on his hip. And that's exactly what the Tigers have needed this entire time. They've needed somebody that can be that guy, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned the running backs. I want to talk about them as well. And you said like they haven't had someone like this since Brandon Thomas in those first several games. Brandon had a wonderful start to the season. Like he was breaking away on runs, but he is a bigger, bulkier between the tackles back. And that's kind of why I went back to Kenny Gainwell. And that's nothing against Brandon. Like Jay's the same kind of running back.
Effective. Yeah.
Right. So you have to have different kinds of running backs. But the last time they had players with that level of shiftiness, just it's a different look, like it's a different kind of movement that Blake Watson and Sutton Smith have that we haven't seen in Memphis since Kenny. Like, and the dynamic ability that adds is huge because not only can you use them between the tackles, outside the tackles, but they've both shown that they can be effective receivers. I think Blake had 5 catches for like 37 yards in this game on top of his 75 rushing yards.
3 touchdowns in the first half. Yeah.
Right. So we've been high on this backfield saying that they have weapons. Still, this took that to the next level. I love what they were able to do. I love what we saw from them. Being able to score rushing touchdowns is something this team has struggled with. I think the offensive line played well. My concern, though, is I think they still allowed 5.5 tackles for loss against this team. And I just don't see how that can get any better against quality of opponent. Now, I know, game one is game one. You have mistakes. I mean, you have a new offensive lineman in there. So communication is a little bit different. They haven't communicated with each other in a game atmosphere before, in a real game atmosphere before with these 5 players on the field together. So I know it can take time for a line to gel, but they just have to clean that stuff up. That stuff has to be cleaned up because we know that they have effective running backs now, but they have to be able to open holes from them when they get to these more difficult games against, quality opponents. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's shaking it up. I don't know if it's just letting these 5 players get that communication and get that chemistry together. But if you're allowing 5.5 tackles for loss against Bethune-Cookman, then a team like Tulane or Boise State, who at least looked effective in the first half,
right,
or first quarter and a half against Washington before Michael Penix and Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze absolutely blew the doors off them in the second quarter and into the second half. Like they looked like a good team for a minute. Tulane covered against South Alabama. So like you have these teams that are going to be effective. Tulane's an effective defensive team. Like you just can't allow that many negative plays because we've seen in the past couple of years, how much that has killed this team
100%.
Getting behind the chains and not being able to run in early downs and make, second and third down more manageable. So if there is a concern for me after this game, that is it. I don't think Seth was super sharp. I think he looked good. Like he wasn't bad. 27 of 36, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, but the 2 picks. So he wasn't perfect, but I just feel like
he was far from perfect.
He was far from perfect.
He wasn't very sharp.
But I think I do have confidence in him to kind of clean that up with it
Yeah,
being game one.
yeah,
I think the biggest thing, even bigger than game one, is like you really do have a new receiving core. You have Rock
yeah,
coming
yeah.
back, but like Rock wasn't used very much last year.
Mm-mm.
So Rock, Demir, Towski, Marcelo Busey, like these guys are all pretty much new receivers, new
Yeah,
tight end. So like everything's new for him as far as weapons, and I don't even think people understand how much that impacts timing and communication and all those things of understanding like, okay, he runs this route this way in this situation and this down and
right.
distance. Like that's stuff that's just going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks to really fully develop, and then I think we'll see it continue to grow throughout the season. But Seth and the offensive line were really my things that I was like, okay, it's a little bit concerning. And if they
Yeah.
don't clean this up, then it can become a pretty big issue throughout the season.
Well, I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it over the last couple of years. We've always been asking the question, like, who in the receiving core is going to step up and be that guy, right? Like, who's going to be that guy? And you go, okay, Seth has looked in previous years, previous seasons, has looked extremely sharp at times, and hasn't. We haven't seen a lot of production from the receivers. Even when Seth has looked at his sharpest, the thing that I thought was encouraging was that Seth didn't look sharp at all in this game. And yet there were multiple receivers that looked like they were ready to fill that role.
Yeah,
And
I really think Demir is like his go-to. That's going to be
I
his
think
go-to
Demir is
guy
going to
this
be his
year.
guy, honestly. Demir looks like he's that kid. He catches the ball, it could be a touchdown anytime he catches the ball.
Yeah.
He's very, 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 very fast on that field. Do you think, let me ask you this about the offensive line, because I think it's weird. Like you said, offensive line, Seth, kind of concerned, like not concerned, but just was the shaky part of the game for you. I've heard Ryan talk, and he did it even today in the availability. He talked about, going back and looking at a film and, is it someone making a 6-inch step when it should have been a footstep? That,
Right.
how important, as somebody who doesn't understand that part of it, is it real? Are we still really at that place with this offensive line? Is it really like that level of detail that can ruin a play?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I wish we had Gabe on right now to really break this down in detail, because obviously he understands offensive line play at a very high level as someone who did it. But yes, like anything can throw an offensive line off. Like if and this is what the example that I'll put. Like I say communication and chemistry a lot, because when you're seeing different blitz packages and you're seeing different schemes, a lot of times you're chipping or you're helping, like say a guard is helping the center and they're
Right.
sliding back out if there's a blitzer coming. So that you'll see, like if you watch, the interior offensive lineman, you'll see a guard will kind of slide right, help a center, and then slide back over and pick up a blitzer if a blitzer is coming. So, and sometimes if the communication isn't right, maybe that tackle will slide and he's not supposed to. He's supposed to stay, or vice versa. Maybe a guard will slide and the guard's supposed to stay and the tackle is supposed to slide. So if your communication and your chemistry on the offensive line is off, then that's when you can see pressures come through and run plays get blown up because guys aren't in the right position, or maybe they're not going to the second level when they're supposed to, or maybe they're not comboing when they're supposed to, or maybe they're not pulling or sliding the right way.
Mm.
So as far as just like the precision to play on the offensive line and play as a unit, it's unlike any other position group in football, because you really do have to be completely connected as an offensive line for a play to be effective. So I completely understand. That's why I was saying before you even brought that up about chemistry and communication, because I think that was a lot of the issues. I don't necessarily think it's a talent issue or a size issue or anything like that. I think they just have to get used to playing in game situations together. You've got a player in McCallum Pounders at left tackle who hasn't played a ton of football. You've got a player in Xavier Hill at right tackle who hasn't played a ton of football at this level and has been an interior offensive lineman in his career at LSU. So like that stuff, it's going to take a minute. I know they've been practicing. I know they've been together since the spring, but it's just having
Game
those
is
in-game
different.
situations with
Yeah.
live bullets flying and different blitz packages that you haven't seen before in practice. Like all these things are what's going to cause issues if there are issues. But if they're able to figure it out and play as one, like I think they have the size and the talent to be a good offensive line. It's just, can they put it all together from a chemistry standpoint?
So what is it that you're going to see? like I think the talking point after every year for the last few years has been the O-line needs work. The O-line, the O-line, the O-line, the O-line. And then you mentioned they play a team like Bethune-Cookman and get some pressures that, tackles for losses, this isn't good. And then you break down the very intricate details of what can create what can destroy a play or help a play with the offensive line. What is it that you look for? What is it you're going to be looking for against Arkansas State or against Navy the week after that'll make you go, okay, these guys got it? Because I know we can sit here and say at the very end of the game, okay, they had 0 tackles for losses. There was no QB pressures. There was no sacks. And we go, okay, they played really well. But during the game, what are you looking for?
I would say really over the next 2 weeks, because these are games, let's be honest, they should run these two teams out of the stadium as well. Like, no, they're not Bethune-Cookman level bad, but they're not good teams. Like this, and this is what me and Gabe were talking about 2 weeks ago. And this was like, I got very passionate talking about this because I think it's absolutely, hands were flying when I was talking about this.
By the way, on the Bluff fans, if you want to know if Christian's engaged in a conversation,
watch my hands.
If these joints are moving, he is in it.
I'm in it. I'm full in it if my hands are moving. But like I said, to tell this team apart from the last 2 years, and Gabe was, these 3 games we won't learn much. In my opinion, we're going to learn a lot from these games. If they go blow the doors off of the next 2 teams like they did Bethune-Cookman and they take care of business as they should, 21.5-point favorites against Arkansas State, and I can't imagine it'll be much different against Navy.
Navy's terrible, man.
Yeah, like I think they opened the season with Notre Dame. They were like 20.5-point dogs, and they didn't realize how bad Navy was going into that game, because I guarantee you that's going to change.
Ty Lavatai is not a great quarterback. I'll just throw that out there to you.
I mean, yeah. But you look at Arkansas State, they just got throttled 70-3-0 by an Oklahoma team that's not anything special necessarily. I know they have Dylan Gabriel, who's a very good and capable quarterback, but Oklahoma's not competing for a national championship.
Top 25 in the country. They're not even really
right.
They're not top 10.
They're 20. They're not like what we're used to seeing Oklahoma when they had Lincoln Riley or anything like that.
Of course.
But they just got killed. I mean, 73-0, and Butch Jones was clearly not happy after that game. And
clearly, everybody but himself under the bus after that game, by the way.
Right. But I think you'll have people come out this week that are going to be like, man, we're going to see a motivated Arkansas State team after that loss to Oklahoma. Like, it doesn't matter if they're motivated or not. Like, Memphis
still stink.
They're more talented than this team, and they should win. They should absolutely win this game. Like I said, it's a 3-touchdown line for a reason.
Yeah.
So to me, it's about this. I got way off topic on you asking.
No, you're good.
Need to see from the offensive line, but I think this is where it starts. If they're going to throttle those teams, we're going to have to see an effective run game. Sacks happen, tackles for loss happen. That's not all on the offensive line. You can have a corner coming down, blitzing on a screen, wide receiver miss a block, and that's a tackle for loss. So
they call them coverage sacks, right?
Right.
Like that, yeah.
Right. So it's not even necessarily in that. It's just that, can they continue to impose their will up front in these games? Can they continue to have success running the ball in these games? Like, if they're able to impose their will and just push back the defensive fronts over these next 2 weeks, then I will feel better going into Missouri and Boise State and Tulane. Because, I mean, if an offensive line is in sync, then they're going to be dominating up front. They're going to be pushing back. They're going to be winning. They're going to be able to run the ball 4, 5, 6 times in a row for 6 or 7 yards a pop if they've imposed their will. So to me, that's kind of the gauge. Like, if they're able to impose their will against 2 more bad teams in a row, albeit better than Bethune-Cookman, we'll learn more from these games than we'll learn from Bethune-Cookman because they're better teams. But I think, to me, that's when I'll be like, okay, maybe they do have this figured out.
So we need to do, like in basketball, they do the 3 stops, right? Like they do, can you get a stop 3 times down the court, and they count that as on the defensive side of the ball, can you get a stop 3 possessions in a row? They count that as 1. And I think the Tigers have a goal of getting like 11 of those every single game.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for. Tiger fans need to be looking for, can we get a 6-yard run? A 6-yard run. How many 6-yard runs in a row can you get? And that's how you'll know that the Tigers offensive line has kind of asserted their will and are communicating on a high level.
Yeah, just being consistent. Like, obviously those breakaway runs are good to have, but just being consistent. Like, you don't want to see a -1, -2, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then you pop a 30. It's like you want to be able to see those intermediate runs where it's like where you feel confident in bigger games about, okay, we can run on first down and get in manageable situations because our offensive line's able to open those holes. So
maybe a lot of 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3.
A lot of short down and distances, I think. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, I think they have the talent. Let's just see over the next couple of weeks if they can put it together. I think we talked about Arkansas State enough. Like I don't think we're going to sit here and preview the Arkansas State game a ton because they are trash, and Memphis should run straight through them, to be honest.
Well, our guy Blake Mayfield will have some stuff on bluffcitymedia.co, and you can go and check out his previews and all of his articles that are coming out. He's killing it over there. So he'll have previews for Arkansas State. We'll leave that to him and not us.
Yeah, he will get all that out there. We'll stay away from previewing Arkansas State. But we talked about the offensive line, the chemistry that they need to have, the communication that they need to have. But Kenny, I would like to think you and I have pretty good communication and chemistry. So I'm trusting you to put together a pretty good hot 3 that we're going to. So
without Gabe, I don't know what we're gonna do, honestly. Without Gabe,
I think we'll be fine. So we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna hear from some sponsors, and on the other side, we'll be back with the hot 3.
Bluff City Media and Bluff City NIL are proud partners of Coaching for Literacy, a Memphis nonprofit using the power of sports to impact childhood literacy. When you donate to Bluff City NIL through Coaching for Literacy, your gift is 100% tax deductible. This partnership is a win-win-win. Tiger student athletes win in the NIL landscape. Coaching for Literacy wins by engaging Tiger student athletes in this monumental cause. And most importantly, elementary students in Memphis receive support to become strong readers. To donate today, visit coachingforliteracy.org/bluff-city.
He has a very strong arm, so his downfield passes, I think, can be really good. We just haven't been able to see them yet, right? We talked about Skates. He had Calvin to throw to as well. So he's had downfield threats. I think we go back to the offensive line, just hasn't given him enough time. But I want to see more vertical downfield attacking. I think we've just been so spoiled that we forget how good Seth has been. Like, he is about to be on year 3. He's in, 5th place, I think, career-wise?
To Kenny's point, he has a chance this year to break the all-time passing record in 3 years.
It's going to be tough to beat Brady White this year, I think, because Brady had some wild years. I'm confident, barring wild injury, he will beat out Paxton and Riley.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
We know he's not going to be the starting point guard. That's definitely going to be Javon Quinley. But I've been kind of looking at this roster, man, and I've been trying to make sense of this. And I've been saying, okay, is he going to come here and be a third point guard? Is he going to be playing behind Jalen Young? Jalen Young may be a better point guard than Mikey Williams will be today.
Yeah.
With all the accolades that Mikey's did in high school, that's high school. You know, Jalen Young has played on the highest level. But when I look at the situation with Mikey Williams, like, okay, could he play in the same backcourt with a Jalen Young or Javon Quinley and play a little bit with Caleb Mills as well? Could he be that combo guard that you can use in multiple situations? I wouldn't be totally surprised if not only your backup point guard minutes, but your backup point guard and your backup shooting guard minutes all go to Mikey by the time it's over. He's that good. He's that level of player who, once he figures out the college game,
that's it.
He could get Jalen Young up out of here, but he's playing backup point and 2.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Discover a world of possibilities at Streetcars of Memphis. Revamp your ride with the ultimate auto transformation. From booming audio systems to eye-catching wheels, powerful lift kits to sleek drop kits, cutting-edge LED lights and light bars, we've got it all. Unleash your style with confidence. Feel the next level of auto care at Street Cars of Memphis. Your dream ride is just a visit away. Visit us online at www.901scm.com and let the transformation begin.
Welcome back. This is the Hot 3 sponsored by Street Cars of Memphis. Man, if you want a total auto transformation on your car, check out this the link in the description. You can click on it, go check it out. Lots of good stuff happening over there. But thank you, Street Cars of Memphis, for sponsoring this segment. Christian, I know we ain't got the big fella with us.
We don't.
You got one half of the big fella team.
Yep.
You ready for the Hot 3?
Let's do it.
Listen, man, there's a lot of really cool stories out there.
There's only one place to start, though.
There's only one place to start, bro, and that's Prime, baby. Let's go to Boulder, man. I know it was in Fort Worth, but let's go to Boulder now because they're there now.
Yeah.
TCU, national championship game last year, obviously lost the game, but came back in number 12 in the country.
17.
Playing 17? Oh, okay, they were 12 at one point. 17 in the country, played against the new look Colorado Buffaloes with one Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, coaching them, and Deion came in and did his damn thing, bro. What'd you think about that game?
I mean, I want to start here because there's a lot of this right now of people that's like, I believed or I didn't believe and I believe now type stuff. At the end of the day, nobody had any clue outside of that organization. So like if you could like maybe had a feeling or maybe had some reasons why you think, but no one could explicitly say going into Saturday one way or the other, this is going to work or this is going to not work.
Yep.
And the reason isn't because Deion Sanders was the head coach or Shedeur Sanders was the quarterback or any of that. It's because they brought in 87 new players. Nobody knew. Like, nobody knew what this here's what I was thinking about earlier when I was thinking about how I was going to kind of phrase this and word this. Colorado this year is like if college football added an expansion team and people were acting like they knew how that team would play.
Right.
Because we've never seen this team play together. In the history of college football, we've never been able to say this is a completely, entirely different from top to bottom coaching staff, players on the field, new team. Yeah. Colorado this year is literally like college football added an expansion team. No one knew what to expect. Like I said, there were some things that we did know. We know Deion was successful at Jackson State. So the people that said they believed he could coach, I'm with that because I was in that boat as well with what he did there. We knew Shedeur Sanders was talented. He was talented coming out of high school. I know it's an FCS school, but proved at Jackson State that he does have talent. Everyone in the world knows that Travis Hunter is good. He was the number one player in the country 2 years ago, so there's no debating if he is a talented player or not. Outside of that, everything was pretty much unknown. Everything. But at the end of the day, they come out, they beat a top 25 team, albeit this is probably only a top 25 team because they were in the national championship last year because they lost a ton. Max Duggan, Kendre Miller, Quentin Johnston, I can't think of the corner's name. It's LaDainian Tomlinson's nephew. I think it's Trevin Hodges Tomlinson or Tomlinson Hodges. Yeah. They lost pretty much all of their best players from last year. So regardless, that none of that matters. They were 3 touchdown underdogs in this game.
Unbelievable.
They come out. Shedeur Sanders sets a school record in his first game for passing yards, over 500 passing yards.
Crazy.
Travis Hunter plays an absolutely absurd 119 overall snaps, has 11 catches for 119 yards, has an interception on defense, and a huge pass defended in the back of the end zone on a 3rd and 18 that should have been a touchdown, but he's just too good and got it away. And it's crazy. This team was confident, and that's why I say no one outside of the organization can say that they knew. Because I mean, you've got before the day before the game, Travis Hunter is doing his podcast, which is awesome. That's kind of what we're trying to do here at Bluff City Media. Travis Hunter has his own podcast, and he's talking about his top 5 Heisman candidates, and himself and Shedeur Sanders were both in there, and they're both now in the conversation, at least after week 1. And then he posted a picture on Instagram and said Heisman loading, and went out and proved everything. Like it wasn't just talk. Like Travis Hunter is legit. He's the real deal. Deion came out today and said he should be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft when he's draft eligible. Like he's legit. And there's so many different areas you can go with this, and so many different statistics you can pull with this that are extremely impressive. Last year, Colorado had 2 100-yard receivers for the entire season. Like they had 2 receivers that had 100 yards in a game the entire season. They had four players that had over 100 receiving yards in their first game.
Unbelievable.
True freshman running back, Dylan Edwards, undersized guy. I think he's like 5'8", 160, 170 pounds. Number 2 overall player in Kansas, 4-star recruit. Deion has coached him since he was a kid. Since he was playing like little league football, and his collegiate debut had 5 catches for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also had a rushing touchdown. He's a running back. Was electric, absolutely electric. Had a 75-yard touchdown. Had a receiving touchdown on 4th and 2 when they absolutely needed it and had to have it. So players stepped up on this team, and it was so much fun to watch. I can't remember the last time.
Oh, man.
Especially this early in the season that a storyline absolutely took over and captivated the college football world like this. Like, it was week 1, so there wasn't a lot going on. There was only one top 25 game, a game with 2 teams in the top 25, and that was not played on Saturday. It was played on Sunday night. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, obviously, with the Mike Norvell connection. That'll be a lot of fun to talk about. But that was the only game, LSU and Florida State, that had 2 top 25 teams. The really only other, like, quote-unquote marquee game for the weekend was South Carolina, North Carolina. And Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Colorado, they absolutely dominated
college football. They won the day, man. They won that day. You think Prime he's that good of a coach, isn't he? Like
I think at the collegiate level that schemes and all that stuff matters to an extent. But I think being a leader of men at the collegiate level is more important than anything else, because you're dealing with 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids.
Right.
And not only do you have to get them to believe in the schemes and the system and the plays that you're running, but you have to get them to believe in you as a coach and your coaching staff, and you have to get them to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Especially, at a school where you're bringing in 87 transfers. Some of these guys have been productive before, but some of them haven't. Like, some of them haven't played big time college football before.
Right.
So you have to be able to instill confidence in them. And if you watch anything from Deion, pregame, postgame practices, anything you see of Deion, he's building his guys up and he's making them believe that they can win. And so, yes, I think Deion is that good of a coach. Not only because he obviously understands the game at a high level and surrounded himself with coaches who believe, who have schemes and systems and have done this at a high level, but he's just putting a different level of confidence into these players that it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Like, we know what we do, why you're here, and we believe, so it doesn't matter. And they showed that. They never backed down. Like, they counterpunched every punch that was thrown.
Every time.
Every time that they got hit, they came right back and returned fire.
And did it in ways that you're just like, you ain't got no shame, right? Like, you legitimately, it wasn't like they just kind of piddle-paddled up and down the field, man. Shedeur was chucking that thing. And it felt very ballsy the way that they played that game. Yeah. And that, to me, feels like that is Deion Sanders at his essence. Is he's always been that guy who's just like, hey man, I'm better than you. and my belief that I'm better than you is worth 7-10 points.
Yeah,
on the
and
field.
you saw that in Shador as well.
Yeah, man.
This is a player that has never played at this level before. Never played at the FBS level, never played at the Division I level before, and never one time looked like it was too big for him, because it absolutely was not.
It wasn't. Yeah.
It never was. And that's another thing. Yes, you can have the coach that instills confidence and keeps everybody level and keeps everybody confident and, makes everyone believe in themselves, but you have to have someone that does that on the field as well.
Yeah.
And Shador is clearly that guy. Like, he did everything the team needed him to do early in the game. He's keeping short, slants, screens. Everything was underneath. And then as the game progressed, he just felt, okay, now we can take it to the second level, third level, and hit on these deeper balls. And just the composure that he had, the confidence that he played with, like, I am nothing but thoroughly impressed with what this team did from top to bottom. Like, yes, the defense wasn't great.
No,
they struggled mightily defensively. They're going to struggle with that all season, I believe, because the Pac-12 is loaded with good quarterback play. I mean, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, they're loaded with good quarterback play. So I think we'll see this defense get better, but I think they'll continue to struggle. But it's hard to say at this point right now, where we sit after week 1, like they're going to get throttled in a bunch of games. I think their win total on the year was like 3.5. A lot of people probably took the over on that, and they're probably feeling really good about it. So Colorado is the storyline of this season, for better or for worse. Whatever way it goes, like, they're going to get a lot of attention this year.
Did you see that story about that guy that made the bet on Colorado for this game and won $65,000 off one team, one game?
Yeah.
Got a funny story for you before we move on to the second thing. TJ and Trey, they're going to talk about it probably on Tigers on Tap, but it's a hilarious story. They have a friend's pool, where they try to guess the right score, and for the Memphis Tiger games, and they picked. It's been going on for like 5 or 6 years. Pool is up to thousands of dollars at this point, and someone picked 56-7 for this Memphis Bethune-Cookman game. And then Gridiron Penny fumbled the ball. Anyway, betting stuff. I'm not a bettor, but I just think that the thrill of victory, $65,000 bet, and the agony of a minute left in the game and Tevin Carter drops the ball. Anyway, hilarious. All right, let's go number 2 here. Topic number 2. Colorado won the day. 30,000 foot view out. Let's look at the whole of college football week 1. Tell me about it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was it was week 1. Usually there are some more marquee matchups in week 1. This year just wasn't that type of year. So there's only a few games that I want to give a ton of attention to, maybe some individual players. I want to start with Florida State LSU, though. I know this is bittersweet for Memphis fans, obviously, because it involves Mike Norvell. But I couldn't be happier for the guy. I love Mike Norvell. I enjoyed covering him when he was here for whatever it was, 2.5 years that we got to work relatively closely with him. And it didn't look good for a while at Florida State, but I'm very glad that they stuck it out with him. We saw kind of the fruits of the labor last year a little bit. We knew they were still thin in some areas, but he absolutely crushed the transfer portal this year, and those guys showed up huge on Sunday night against LSU. They've done an incredible job at developing Jordan Travis, who is a talented quarterback, but now he is becoming one of the better, maybe top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in college football, in a time where the quarterback position is really loaded in college football. The guys that they brought in, Keon Coleman, absolutely great game. Jaheim Bell, they brought in from South Carolina, 2 touchdowns at the end of that game. Johnny Wilson, who they brought in last year, 6'7", 240 receiver, big game. Kyle McCord, I believe, is the other tight end that they brought in. I think Jaheim Bell and McCord were the top 2 tight ends in the transfer portal, but brought both of them in. They were both successful. So they just, Trey Benson on the offense, like, they just have so many playmakers on that offense. Jared Verse, a guy they brought in before last year, has the potential to be the number 1 overall drafted defensive player in the 2024 NFL draft. So overall, they were underdogs in that game. I think they were 1.5 point underdogs against LSU in that game, and they came out and dominated, especially in the second half of that game. They really tore away. So kudos to Mike Norvell. After what they did, that's a team that's going to be a trendy pick for the college football playoff early in the season, just based off of their previous ranking at 8 and what they did to a very talented LSU team with a quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who a lot of people think is in the Heisman conversation. I don't necessarily know where I stand on that, but they got a guy in Jaden Daniels who is no doubt talented. They got Malik Neighbors, who is a potential first-round pick in this upcoming draft. They got Harold Perkins, who will probably be a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. Mason Smith was suspended for this game. Mekhi Wingo, a third-team preseason All-American. So LSU is a very good football team.
Yeah.
And they took it straight to them, dominated them.
The second half was ugly.
Oh, LSU didn't have a chance.
No. I got a question I want to ask you about
Yeah,
this.
go ahead.
Colorado won the day. Deion Sanders obviously cemented himself in just his ability to lead men, like you were talking about. I'm also very grateful that that Florida State and their fans, not even their fans, but their administration stuck by Mike Norvell. Yeah. Everybody from Memphis knew, just give him time.
Just give him a chance.
Florida State was a dumpster fire when he got
terrible.
There.
Absolutely terrible.
And so we just knew, like, hey, man, give Mike Norvell a chance, right, to get this thing righted. All at the same time, he had Jackson State's Deion Sanders kind of creating waves and people freaking out that Deion Sanders, and there were people that were ready to get rid of him, right? Get rid of Mike Norvell to get Deion Sanders in play. And very clearly, Florida State made their choice. Mike Norvell's our guy. How hilarious is it that on the same weekend that Deion won the day, Mike Norvell comes out the very next day and donkey stomps LSU and says, Florida State, we're here, right?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that, could you imagine what the storylines would have been on Monday if
he would have gotten,
if Norvell had struggled?
The score would have been reversed.
Yeah. Or it's come out and just piddly 10-3 beat LSU.
Yeah. No, sometimes these stories write themselves, like it's a
pretty awesome, right?
Pretty cool thing. Couple other notes. I'm going to try not to be as long-winded. Sorry. Gabe likes to talk, and I've gotten to talk tonight. I've overstepped you the whole night.
Rolling, bro. Let's go.
I do want to talk a little bit about North Carolina, South Carolina. That was kind of the other marquee matchup of the weekend. A lot of people were excited about the quarterback matchup between Caleb May. Is that right? Drake May. Wait, I'm mixing Caleb Williams and Drake May.
Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen.
All run together. Together. Drake May, excuse me. I promise I know what I'm talking about.
Speaking of, did you see the Sunday conversation?
I did.
Funny.
It was good with Caleb Presley.
Yep.
So you have Drake May and Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler, former #1 overall quarterback, coming out of high school, went to Oklahoma, transferred to South Carolina. They closed out the season strong last year, beating Tennessee and Clemson, kind of ruining the college. Right? Yeah, kind of ruining the college football playoff hopes for both of those teams. I think they ultimately lost in the bowl game to Notre Dame, but a lot of hype around South Carolina going into the season, not ranked, but like one of those quiet outside the top 25 teams that a lot of people, we can see them sneaking up and, making some noise. And ultimately, their offensive line was terrible. They allowed 9 sacks against North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I think Spencer Rattler had like 350 passing yards with no touchdowns, just because every time they would even get close to scoring range, North Carolina would knock them back multiple times. He just had no time. At the end of the game, you look and he's throwing his hands up at Shane Beamer on the sideline like, I don't know what to do. It's 3rd and 21, and they're throwing 2-yard outs because they don't have enough time to let anything develop down the field. I know North Carolina won this game relatively handily, but Drake May didn't necessarily look great.
Yeah.
And we know how talented he is. He was incredible last year as a redshirt freshman, but 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. I think it's one of those cases of this guy has so much arm talent that as of right now, today, still being a young player, he's still probably trusting his arm a little bit too much on those tight window throws.
Yeah.
But overall, that was, like I said, the second biggest quote unquote game of the weekend. And it wasn't, I expected it to be a closer, better game, but ultimately South Carolina's offensive line is the reason that it was not. They just could, South Carolina got 2 timely interceptions, and they couldn't do anything with it offensively because the offensive line was atrocious. What else we got? I'll give you a late one. I don't even know if you know about this, but I watch college football literally from 11 a.m. on Saturday to 12:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. I watched over 12 hours of college football on Saturday. That's all I did.
Dang, dog.
I was laying in my bed about to fall asleep, and a little Pac-12 after dark, UCLA was playing Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I was watching that game.
Were you?
Yep.
And Ethan Garbers, who won the starting quarterback job in the offseason over 5-star Dante Moore, who is just stupid upside in this guy. He wins the starting job. UCLA plotted through like their first 7 drives. I think they scored 1 touchdown. They couldn't do anything. They bring in Dante Moore. His first 2 drives as a collegiate passer, he goes 4 or 5 for like 115 and 2 touchdowns. Threw an absolute beautiful ball to J. Michael Sturdivant, West Virginia transfer, on a post. I mean, it was just money shot. And you just see like, man, maybe a star is being born right now. Now, he did come back. He threw an interception later in the game in the end zone, made a mistake, but you just see the talent. And it's just like, man, if you're Chip Kelly, I get it. Ethan Garbers probably really played well in the offseason and won the starting job, but I don't know how they turn away from Dante Moore now. I would think Dante Moore kind of entrenched himself as, okay, we got to rock with this guy a little bit because he's just got such good talent and clearly a gamer. Just come in that situation and throw back-to-back touchdown passes was pretty cool to watch. Anything else interesting I'm missing? Everything else was pretty much a blowout. Michael Penix had a ridiculous game against Boise State, 450 and 5. Caleb Williams had another ridiculous game. Those 2 guys are just, man, like I said, college quarterback play is awesome right now, especially
it really
in the
is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. It's really, really good. Like I said, the Pac-12 is a really hotbed for quarterback talent right now with some of the guys that they've got. Oklahoma dropped 70. Oregon dropped 81. Ole Miss, I think, dropped 70. I think 4 teams had over 65 points over the weekend, which kind of tells you about the competition of the weekend. But overall, glad it's back. I think that's pretty much it, though. College football was back last weekend, but what's coming up this week?
You gonna watch all 3? You gonna watch 12 hours worth of college football on Saturday again?
I mean, possibly.
Yeah.
No, I won't because
you got NFL. Because then you got
Israel Adesanya is fighting on Saturday night, so no.
I cannot believe that's not a part of our hot 3.
It's a football heavy hot 3. I didn't even think about it.
This is a football heavy hot 3.
Yeah.
We're gonna throw a Mikey Williams or a Malcolm Dandridge name in this last hot 3.
Yeah,
just so we can get some of the rub, right?
Throw that in the title.
Yeah, just mention their name and put it in the title. All right, topic number 3. Let's go Lions and Chiefs, man. NFL football regular season is here, baby. Thursday night.
First game of the regular season on Thursday night. What's the you got spreads pulled up? What's the spread on that game? I think it's like 5. I think 5.5 is the last time I saw it, but I could be wrong on that.
Let me look at it real quick. I'll find it for you.
I'm not even gonna talk while you do it.
Come on, talk to me. Sing me a song.
I've talked enough.
Sing me a song. Sing me a Go Tigers Go song. All right. It is I'm on ESPN. Should I be on something else? Oh, no. 6.5. Minus 6.5.
6.5?
Yeah, the over under is 54.5.
Okay. This is the opening game of the year. I mean, I think it's usually you see like 2 teams that went deep in the playoffs the year before. Yeah. Like last year, it was the Rams who had won the Super Bowl in 2021 versus the Bills who had went to the either AFC Championship game or they lost in the divisional game to the Chiefs. It was the overtime Mahomes-Allen battle. So it's 2 teams that typically go pretty deep in the playoffs the year before. This year they throw the Lions in there, which I'm
telling you about the Lions. That's what they think about the Lions.
Right. A lot of people are hyped about the Lions. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, the GM, have done just a ridiculously good job at turning that team around. Obviously, they haven't been to the playoffs yet in the 2 years under Dan Campbell, but you can see what he's building. You can see like that team just has just has so much confidence. So I love this as an opening week matchup. Last year's was an absolute dud. The Bills killed the Rams in the season opener because the Rams
are trash, man.
Yeah, they had just won the Super Bowl and everything was kind of going downhill for them.
They went all in on that Super Bowl and said,
right,
hey man, we'll pick the pieces up later.
Yeah, Stafford's health was in question going into the season last year, and he didn't make it through the entire season, so it wasn't great. This game has the opportunity to just be fireworks, offensive fireworks. I mean, you look at the talent offensively in this game. You start with the obvious of Patrick Mahomes, and then you've got Travis Kelce, the best tight end of all time. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think has a chance to establish himself as a top 5, top 7 receiver in the league this year. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, the first-round pick out of Alabama, number 12 overall pick, who they are extremely excited about.
They got a rookie running back starting and they're 2 deep, man. They got him number 1 in the 2 deep.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted him to be the guy. I mean,
he's that good?
Yeah. Jahmyr
Gibbs, I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah, I mean, rookie running backs, though, they go straight starting. Like, if you're drafting a rookie running back in the first round, like, they're going to start. Like, that's the way that running back works in the NFL.
I believe you.
But Jahmyr, they've got Jahmyr, who is a multifaceted weapon. They'll use him as a receiver. They'll use him as a running back. They've got David Montgomery coming over from the Chicago Bears. You've got 2 of the best offensive lines in football. The Lions' offensive line has been incredible the last couple of years. In Kansas City, you got Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and Andrew Wiley's now gone. Orlando Brown's now gone. They bring in Jawan Taylor from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So these are 2 very inept offensive teams who don't have the best defenses. Kansas City, kind of an opportunistic defense. The Lions' defense was pretty atrocious last year, but we'll get to see what they brought in, how much that helps, especially against the best offense in football on a defense that was really bad last year. They bring in Jack Campbell, first-round pick out of Iowa, who was widely considered the best linebacker in the draft. They bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, extremely versatile defensive back, previously of the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles, was with the Eagles last season. They bring in Emmanuel Mosley, one of the most underrated corners in the league, coming over from the 49ers. They bring in Cam Sutton, another really underrated corner coming over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, they've done a lot to improve their defense, and it will be put to the ultimate test against Patrick Mahomes in Week 1.
Yep.
I'm so excited, though. I mean, they could throw the 2 worst teams in the league out there, and I would watch from opening kick until 000 on the clock. But I think this is a really good game. I think probably a high-scoring, back-and-forth affair, and it kind of will depend on which defense steps up, which usually Kansas City's defense finds a way to step up, and I'm never going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. So I'll say the Chiefs probably pull this one out, but I think it's going to be a very, very fun, entertaining game for the majority.
Is Jared Goff the guy for Detroit, or is he kind of a holding place for their number 1 quarterback, the guy that they really want, that can take them to the next level?
Yeah, I don't think Jared Goff will ever. I mean, I can't say he can't take you to a Super Bowl, because he did take the Rams to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they didn't win, but I don't think Jared Goff is never that guy that's going to push you over the top. I mean, when you think about that Rams team, he played very well in a very well-ran system under Sean McVay that featured Todd Gurley, who was the Offensive Player of the Year, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, the defense led by Aaron Donald. They had a lot of talent on that team. I know that team didn't win the Super Bowl. They lost to the Patriots that year. But to answer your question, I don't think Jared Goff is the ultimate end goal for them. I don't think he's the quarterback that they see that takes them to the next level. They drafted Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round of this year's draft.
Is he healthy now?
Yeah. I think he's right around getting help. I mean, that was November against South Carolina when he tore his ACL. So he's 10 months removed from that.
He hasn't played any preseason games, has he?
No, he didn't. He didn't play in the preseason. So I think in an ideal world for them, Jared Goff leads them through this year. Hendon Hooker sits back a year, learns, gets fully healthy.
I think Hendon's that guy, huh?
I mean, I think he could be. I thought him being a third-round pick was pretty nuts. I mean, I've voiced my opinion on this show of Hendon Hooker before.
I know.
I thought he was better than Anthony Richardson. I know Anthony Richardson was a top 5 pick because of 4.43, 6'5", 240, all that. I just think Hendon Hooker is a better quarterback. Not to say Anthony Richardson can't be developed into something because he has all the physical ability in the world. But I think just because Hendon Hooker is 24, 25 years old and had a knee injury,
yeah, of course,
that shouldn't mean that doesn't not that it shouldn't mean it does not mean that he can't be a really good NFL quarterback. Like if there's a position where age doesn't matter in football, it is at the quarterback position.
100%. Look at Tom Brady. I mean, not to compare him to the GOAT, but I'm just saying, like,
right. But quarterbacks play later in their career.
Yeah, of course.
And I think Hendon has all the upside in the world. I know people say he played in a simplified system at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, and that, you know, maybe that system doesn't translate to the NFL. But you give a guy with that much natural ability. I mean, he's got a beautiful deep ball. Yeah. He's extremely accurate. He can use his legs. Like, he has all the intangibles that you want to see in a modern day NFL quarterback. And now you're going to let that guy sit a year
and learn.
And learn and understand the NFL, understand the preparation and everything that goes into it. And maybe he sits for a year, and maybe him and Goff compete next year. And if he wins that starting job, you're on an offense that features Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and David Montgomery and, I mean, Sam Laporta, who they drafted in the second round this year out of Iowa. Like, he could be airdropped into a top 5 offense in the league if all that goes right. So, no, I know I'm, like I said, Gabe doesn't let me talk, so I'm being super long-winded tonight. But I think if everything goes according to plan, I think that's kind of their end goal. Now, it could not work out with Hendon, and he could not be the guy, but I do not think that Jared Goff is the guy that they have envisioned as the end goal for this team.
Do you think that it feels almost like to me that the NFL is kind of setting Detroit up for that Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs type storyline where it's like, hey, right now, you guys are the future team, right? Like, you guys are going to be contenders for the next however many years, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. We're going to place you up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who have clearly done what they've done, and we're going to throw you to the wolves for maybe the first couple of matchups. So then that storyline kind of gets built of Detroit kind of bridging that gap with the big bullies on the block, right? And then boom, there they go. Like, kind of like what the storyline, but I mean, is the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills the last couple of weeks. There's been the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Chiefs the last couple of years. You know, there's been kind of the Chiefs have always been that who's the team that's going to supplant the Chiefs, you know?
Yeah, and I think they're looking at an NFC that is very weak. I mean, you look at the NFC and the top 3 teams pretty much unanimously, for the most part, are the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. And that's not me being a homer. That's just really the NFC is weak. Right. And so it kind of feels like this is them saying, hey, Lions, we're going to give you the national spotlight and see if you can kind of supplant yourself into the conversation for one of the better teams in the NFC, because you don't have to beat the Chiefs to announce your arrival and be like, no, we're here and we're legit. You play a tough back and forth game with the Chiefs and you give them everything you want, then you're starting to earn some respect around the league.
You still got to play Philly. You still got to play Philly. You still got to play Dallas. I mean, it's going to be tough. Philly's there, but
All right, Kenny, I have used up too many words tonight, and I mean, I almost need to apologize to you for how much that I've talked tonight. I've been.
Hey, what did I tell you? What did I tell you at the beginning of this episode? Beginning of recording.
Just go
for it, because I knew it was going to be a football heavy thing, and you're sitting here asking about the Lions, and I'm like, bro, I ain't got nothing for you. You asked me to name 3 Lions, and I gave you Jared Goff.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I can't believe you outed yourself like that.
That's behind the fourth wall, right? Like, listen, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't have an NFL team. I know I should, but I don't watch NFL as much as everybody else does.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say we appreciate you guys for joining us. If you are still watching, you can like, subscribe, comment. All you got to do is click the button below. If you are listening on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can like there as well. You can leave a rating, and you can be notified for when we drop new episodes every single Tuesday. As I mentioned, we appreciate you guys for joining us. Players Club on Tuesday. Come out, check it out, let it fly in Germantown. This week, we have Tevin Carter, we have Jay Ducker, we have Bryce Edmondson, and we have Jonah Gamble. They will be joining us. You can come out, watch it live, 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. All right, I think that's all I got. I'm done with words. Appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back in the studio next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.